Backpack Broadcasting continues to bring you the best original sports content, but now you can get more of the content you love. For as little as $3 a month, you can get access to bonus content, including behind-the-scenes footage and interviews from the Sports Walk, Sideline Stories, or the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. All this exclusive content comes via Patreon. There are tiered levels of patronage, and each Backpack Broadcasting patron receives exclusive perks. Your support helps Backpack Broadcasting create more of the original content that you love. Visit Backpack Broadcasting's Patreon page and become a patron today. Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. We are here from the Gotham Podcast Studios. Dexter, Henry, Bryan Fonseca, and we have a guest today. His name is DeAntae Prince, editor, Sports Illustrated's The Crossover. I read his work all the time. I'm always on the crossover reading NBA stuff. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, man? I don't write that much, so you probably don't read me.
I see you when you're in the round tables. I see you when you're in the discussions. Now, you used to write more, but now I see that obviously you're doing more editing, and they have you on that side of things. You're really busy. How's it been, being the editor of The Crossover, where a lot of people, come and check that out for NBA content like myself?
It's cool. I mean, it's a lot better now because we're into the actual season. There's more to do. During the summer, you're kind of just like pulling straws and trying to figure out what you're actually going to do from day to day. But, I mean, now it's great. It's just a lot of fun getting to manage like 5 or 6 people, putting together story ideas and all that. And just, it's basketball, so it's easy.
Yeah, man. But you obviously, like you said, we used to write a lot. So have you what's been that? Like, I just had a friend who did this. She went from writing, being a courts reporter, and now she's like an editor. What's that transition going from being a writer and, now going to being an editor? How's that been?
It's just like more people management, basically. Like, that's the biggest difference. Like, you knew me when I worked at Sporting News.
Yep.
It was a 2-man shop, so I had to write in order for us to actually have content.
Mm-hmm.
Here is more like talking to people and getting things in line. And, I mean, you still get, like, the writing itch and you want to, kind of, like, do your things on the side and try to, like, do features and everything. But sometimes it's not enough, enough hours in a day.
Yeah. Are you able to get to that stuff, though?
Huh?
Are you able to get to that stuff, though?
Probably, like, once a month.
Damn.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll probably write something like once a month.
Shoot, I'll take that if it pays well.
Yeah, but I'm saying, he's got, like he said, you got a lot of content.
I'm working like every day, but I'm
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm like, man. See, my whole thing with editing has always been like, you mentioned people management, and I can't imagine like what you're not in your head.
Yeah,
I can't imagine what that's like.
I won't get too deep into it, but yeah, you have to deal with people's quirks.
Yeah,
writers can be really quirky too.
Oh, yeah. Dexter.
You gotta deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, I know that too. Even my career starting at Prince, so
How am I now?
Quirky.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
He's quirky.
I'm a lot to deal with.
But you've like that. What are you? I mean, obviously NBA season right now.
Right.
We're gonna get into that in a second, but just so people understand your background from Chi-Town.
Yeah.
I know you're proud representative of Chicago.
Got it on right now.
Got it on right now. Rocking the Sox hat.
I have Chicago questions, but we'll get to
you
that
got Chicago
later.
questions for him
Later.
All right, we'll get into that.
Music related, nothing crazy.
We always like to.
Can't snitch on nobody.
We always like to let people know, when we get people up here in the industry who've done stuff in sports journalism, just how they've got to where they got. So just, if you could, for people, just sort of tell your story. What's your story? Obviously coming from Chi-Town and getting to be the editor of Sports Illustrated, The Crossover. Yeah,
so basically played basketball my whole life and then went to Indiana because I didn't want to go to college with anybody I went to high school with. So
beautiful.
Yo, he's gonna rock with you on that.
So I just
because I made that mistake. I went to college with like 10 people from my graduating class of 55 students. So yeah,
DeAntae's like
55 is wild.
Yeah, it was really small. It was
really
small. But you know what? I would say this: out of 10 of us, probably I graduated with like 2 others.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you didn't want to see anybody from high school, pretty much.
Nah.
Was high school that bad?
It was just boring. I was just like tired of seeing the same people.
Understood.
There you go. There you go.
Sorry to hijack your story. Go ahead.
So I accidentally ended up at a good journalism school. I was actually dating a girl who used to work for the arts section, and I was like, "Oh, I want to try that."
Huh.
Try the girl or the art section?
Well, no, I'd already tried that. Oh man, you gotta be saying stuff I always say. So I just walked into the newspaper at the end of my freshman year. And then followed up the next year, and then I, started writing, started editing, worked worked as the basketball reporter, worked as the sports editor for the newspaper, and then just did like a bunch of internships, like 5. I actually took a semester off from school to do one internship too. So, yeah, I was in Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Oh,
Wow.
Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Rock Hill. I was at a lot of
It's
places
the
in
same
South
thing to
Carolina
me.
recently. You know?
It's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Let me ask you this. So you mentioned newspaper, student newspaper. What era was that? Like, what era of newspapers are we talking about? Like early, like what year?
So I graduated in 2010.
Okay.
So, I mean, I was basically while I was working, seeing people that I worked with graduate and not be able to get jobs. So it was a little weird. It was still in like
I'm familiar with that.
It was the light days, yeah.
Because we've talked on this podcast with ourselves, with other people, with ourselves. That was stupid. About like the newspaper industry and how it's sort of, I don't want to say evolved, because I wouldn't say evolved is the right way to say, but how it's just changed and not necessarily for the better and things like that. So I just want to get your thoughts on it. You know, someone coming up from that,
Yeah.
still writing, still editing.
Well, it's interesting because I interned at like 5 different newspapers and I never actually worked at one. I think once I started working in sporting news and I looked around at what people were doing in newspapers, people who I graduated with taking like jobs that paid like $20K in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, I don't think I want to do that. And then, I mean, this happens at ESPN and places like this too, but there were a lot of like my favorite writers getting like furloughs where they were off for 2 weeks because they couldn't pay them because their salaries had grown too high, because, you know, like in the 90s there was like that gold standard where, you know, everybody was reading the paper and people were getting paid like sky high salaries.
Yeah, I was born too late. See,
Yeah.
told you.
We all were.
We all were, yeah.
But I mean, I just like saw a lot of that from the sidelines, and it kind of made me want to stay on the online side.
I mean, yeah, but you were ahead of your time in that way, wouldn't you say? Like,
Probably.
because the way, I mean, now newspapers still are trying to catch up to online because they sort of cannibalize themselves and put everything free, and then they try to make everybody pay for it again. Now you have places like The Athletic where they're actually trying to
Get people to pay.
Believe me, people online are still trying to figure out like business models and stuff like that too.
Is there a right way to do it? I mean, what do you think?
The right way would have been to charge people from the beginning, and then you
Yep.
set a standard that, you know, people know that they have to pay for this content.
But once people got a taste
Once you
of not
give
paying,
it to them for free, it's like Napster. You know what I mean? Once you give people the music for free, they don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
Once you give people the content for free, they don't want to pay for it.
So what do we do now?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Where's the time machine?
Like, cause I'm literally trying to figure this out all the time. It's like what, like, all right, The Athletic is trying what they're trying to do, even though, and I've said this to people that write at The Athletic, I think that they're making a mistake by ignoring combat sports, but that's just me. And then you have other places that, you know, everyone's just trying to find their footing. Places like SB Nation, for example, where they're making a lot of money, but they're not paying their writers that much. Hello. So what do you think?
I don't know. I don't even think it's just a print issue. It goes into video. It goes into all these different content, right? It's kind of hard. And then I'm more in the vein of DeAntae, even though I'm a little bit older, that, you know, when I came out of school, it was in this really interesting place where people didn't know where they were going online. Those opportunities were starting to come up. Like for you, when you graduated, you had sporting news to go to, and even though they kind of were doing both, you know what I'm saying? They still were trying to put out.
Yeah, we started a magazine when I
They
went
still had a
there.
magazine.
Yeah, didn't they only recently get rid of the magazine?
It's like 2014.
14.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it was.
I was
more
there
recent
when
than
like
that.
the last magazines rolled through the yeah.
Oh wow, I thought
Yeah.
it was more.
Yeah,
recent
that's
than
actually, I think, when you and I like actually first met face to face. We like were following each other on
Yeah, it was
Twitter.
like a year after they stopped doing the magazine.
Yeah, I actually remember that.
that. Damn.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure what the solution is. I mean, I think good content wins in the end of the day. I do believe in that. Now, how we all profit off of that, how we all benefit from that,
Right.
that's a whole nother.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. God damn it.
So I'm not sure I have all the answers to that. But back to you.
Right.
So you did these 5 internships
Yeah.
while at IU.
5.
So what was the jump from there to Sporting News? Because I met you when you were at Sporting News, but what was the jump from there to Sporting News?
Yeah, so I was actually interning at the Sun Sentinel in Fort Lauderdale when someone that I knew from that internship in South Carolina, where I was in the middle of nowhere, I worked with a woman whose husband worked at Sporting News. So we met a couple times, and then when I saw the listing, I hit him up like, hey, what do you think about, like, what's up with this job, blah, blah, blah. and then I reached out to them, went out for an interview, came back, and then on my birthday that year, actually, I got the call that they would want to offer me the job.
Oh.
Yeah. So then I left my internship like 2 weeks early and moved straight to Charlotte. Yeah.
You moved around to a lot of places too. Were you?
Yeah, I live. Oh well, I mean, doing the internships, like I just would like pack up and just go somewhere for like 3 months and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't. See, that's sort of fascinating to me because a lot of people aren't willing to move. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people, even in small cities, like in big cities, I could kind of get that because like I've always lived in New York. We've always lived in New York.
Yeah, outside of college for me, but yeah.
Yeah. But for the most part, people, there's a sort of fear factor into, look, I don't want to leave my hometown. I'm comfortable here. And you've moved to like even places like South Carolina, which I don't want to disrespect South Carolina, but it's South Carolina. You know what I'm saying?
There's nice places in South Carolina.
I mean, I wasn't exactly in like Charleston or something where like, people go to like.
Charleston's dope.
Well, yeah, people go to vacation there. I wasn't in like a vacation spot. I was where like the movie theater is the only thing in that town, basically.
Right.
I knew
everything shuts down at like 10 or 11. Winthrop was actually there. Like the college was there, but I didn't know anybody there. So,
what was sort of your attitude in terms of moving to all these places, just beyond? Oh, I don't want to see the same people that I've seen in high school my entire life.
I think I always kind of had a mindset that I wanted to visit other places. I think part of that might have come from playing AU basketball, where we go every weekend. We go to a different city, a different state every weekend. So I'd be going to all the places like regionally, Michigan, Indiana, all those places, and then whenever there was nationals, we would drive down to like Nashville or Florida or something like that. Those drives were rough though, like 15 dudes in a passenger van for like a day basically. But I think that kind of started the bug where like I wasn't afraid to, go to another place. I mean, to this day, most of my family still live in Chicago, never lived anywhere else, like never even really like stepped foot out of the state. But I think I lived in Indiana, obviously, South Carolina, North Carolina, California, Florida. And here too. So
damn, what part of Indiana?
Well, I went to school in Bloomington, and I interned in Indianapolis at the Indianapolis Star. So I've been everywhere.
Been everywhere.
Basically,
man.
Yeah.
That's good. Do you want to go back to that small town in South Carolina ever again?
Nah, but I might take some Charlotte over New York City though. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh,
really?
See, DeAntae and I were actually having a conversation on the elevator up here about people getting really offended if you say you don't really like their city.
Yeah.
Look at what happened to Nigel Hayes.
The Cleveland thing is popping off today because people were talking about the All-Star Weekend potentially being there. I think what year was it? 2022.
2022. Yeah.
22. Yeah.
Okay.
So I saw a few writers being like, I'm busy that weekend, and then Cleveland people,
I would be too.
Cleveland people immediately getting offended. They still haven't recovered from that Joakim Noah joke either.
Yeah,
They're in the same place.
I mean, I could also see where they're sensitive about it, but at the same, I've never been to Cleveland, so
you don't want to go.
There you go. Like that's sort of the reputation that they have.
Go hit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and then
see how you said the You're like, yeah. What else? What else do you do downtown Cleveland?
You're not gonna watch a Cavs game no more.
Nah. What else are you gonna do downtown Cleveland?
I mean, unless they get R.J. Barrett. If they get R.J. Barrett, then maybe I'll be
Browns,
down.
I guess.
Yeah, I'll pass
Baker
on that
Mayfield.
I mean, we know they're firing
I'll watch
coaches.
Baker.
Yeah,
I'll watch Baker.
They're firing coaches there. We'll get into that in a second.
See those memes in
Do
real
we
time?
have to?
Yeah, we don't. we don't. So you like Charlotte a little bit better than New York City. And here, let me say this because DeAntae said this.
I think Kemba Walker does too.
The time, DeAntae, when you and I met, that was actually my first time in Charlotte. That time I was down there. And I like Charlotte. Charlotte's a dope city.
Haven't been there yet.
Yeah,
My brother was actually born in North Carolina.
I like Charlotte. I think it's a dope city. I think it's the second fastest growing city in the country behind Austin, if I'm not mistaken. I like this. I think it's a good city.
Interesting.
If you're from Chi-Town, so you're also from a big city, but
yeah.
I always say I understand people who are from smaller cities who come to New York and they're like, yo, this is too fast for me. This is too much for me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying that you were saying that.
I don't know if New York is fast to me.
Well, I've heard that from...
But you're from a big city where there's energy to
New York is slow to me.
Slow?
Really?
Really?
I've heard fast, but the person was from San Diego.
I'm waiting on the train. I'm walking behind people all day. New York does not feel fast to me.
There's a lot of people.
Well, you know what? I will say
in Chicago,
this.
you get in your car and go where you got to go.
You can't do that. Like, you can't do that here.
But,
No, you can't.
Like
That's the thing. You can't drive here. New York is slow.
You can, but it's
commuting wise. New York is.
I
slow.
get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying. I feel you. What
do you feel, Dexter? Do you feel like New York has gotten slower than it used to be because of the transplant of gentrification that has overtaken the city?
You know what? Now I think about something like that. When you're in certain parts, like Harlem,
I do notice that when I'm walking around, I'm more pissed off because people are in front of me. To DeAntae's point,
you know what? Now I'm thinking about what you're saying and DeAntae's saying, and I'm like, man, there are some times I'm walking and people are just, you could tell they don't walk like they're from here.
Yeah.
So they don't move with that energy.
Like they don't know
when
you're slow, you got to be on the outside, not in the middle.
And as a New Yorker, that annoys me.
New Yorkers say this every time I talk to them about the walking thing.
All right, let's hear this.
But it's hard to know. Like, I run into this so much. There has to be some like actual New Yorkers who also don't know these rules.
The rules of walking.
The ones.
If you're slow, be on the outside, and if you're in a hurry, be in the middle. That rule?
Yeah.
So I take it as a Chicago head, you're also annoyed by some of the slow walkers on the streets.
Oh, we walk fast, Chicago.
Okay, okay.
We walk in front of cars, everything.
Yeah, I mean,
the cabs there actually stop though. Out here, the cabs will hit you.
Nah, they'll hit you.
Yeah, in Chicago, the cabs actually stop. Yeah.
Yeah. Out here, these cabs trying to get this money. They ain't giving a damn at all.
Yeah,
they'll definitely hit you. We are into the NBA season. NBA season started. You being an editor, you've got all these writers pumping out these stories for you, all this great content. What's been the most interesting thing for you this season? Maybe shocking. Obviously, everybody's watching the Lakers every game. I don't know if you're like me, trying to stay up late and watch these games on League Pass. What's been the most interesting thing for you this early on this NBA season?
I don't think it's LA because I kind of assume there would be some drama there. Wherever LeBron goes, there's going to be some drama just because, and it might not even really be his doing, but there are just so many reporters who follow him, like they literally move from city to city to follow him.
Yo, for real.
So the
Dave
stories,
McMenamin.
Yeah,
Brian Windhorst.
They all do. Well, I don't think Windhorst moved to LA.
Yeah,
but,
he didn't.
But the stories,
he didn't, yeah.
The stories are gonna follow him. So just because you have those transplants, there are gonna be more stories coming out of LA. I think I'm more interested in just watching the Warriors be engaged, just because like last year it was all about them like kind of throwing away the regular season and not really caring, and this year seeing them be energized even after winning the finals last year and seeing them really like go at people, and KD scoring 40, Steph scoring 50, Klay scoring 50, like seeing them really try to just like kill people this early in the year and not really like tiptoe around it. That's been the most fun to me.
But the other thing people are definitely going to watch for is Kevin Durant's pending free agency.
Yeah, I feel like we can't even enjoy the regular season now because everybody starts talking about what's going to happen next season.
I can.
So
I do. I know I'm with you. I do, but I feel like people just.
But
focus way too much.
I'm with it though. If players want to go from team to team, like that's what free agency is for. I mean, before free agency, teams basically owned players and paid them what they wanted to pay them, and you know what I mean. So I'm all for a player who wants to go somewhere else and get the highest dollar.
I agree. I just don't want to hear about hypotheticals all season long.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm also not. I also want to say this because you mentioned Golden State not being engaged. So I was at when the Nets played Golden State, and that was actually a good game before Golden State went and did what they did to the Bulls. The very next night, but
that hurt DeAntae so.
Yeah, but
we already touched on this.
But yo, man, I'm just gonna say this. I am not ready for the Nets to be good yet because I was at that game and everybody was covering that team, and I was like, bruh, I am not ready for this.
Oh, the Warriors in town. You're always. In
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I am not. If they get good and being that they're in the New York market, I was like, bruh. But Golden State, that game, it was weird because they struggled that game. And I don't feel like the Nets and the Bulls are that far apart. And then it's 92-50 at halftime the next night.
Yeah.
And the Nets lost to the Knicks. So, I mean, you could do with that what you will.
Yeah. And look, I'll
to your New York Knicks. Frank Ntilikina had a nice game.
Well, they could have showed up in Chicago pissed off that they had a close game with the Nets, and then they took all of it on
the Bulls.
So what happened to Brooklyn then?
No, that's what I'm saying.
But I'm saying you want to explain Brooklyn's end of that? It's like, oh, we had a good one with Golden State. We're good.
Then how they lost to the
I see
Knicks?
what you mean.
Oh yeah, well, I can't explain all that.
No,
So,
no.
I find it interesting that you also find the Warriors as the most intriguing thing, and I do think they're definitely playing more engaged this season. When you look back at last season, we know this run that they've been on has been so great, and obviously it's exhausting. They're playing all these games. Why do you think they were so not engaged last season, but this season it seems like they're really coming at people's necks right now?
I think the year before when they had the 24-0 run and they felt like they had to push it every night and they couldn't, sit people because they wanted to get that record. I think that might have actually led to a little bit of wear and tear. And there might have also been like that Kevin Durant factor, like, oh, we have KD, we don't have to play as hard a little bit. And I think those two things might have combined to sort of like they probably thought they could check out a little bit more. And then once, you have the Rockets push you to that 7-game series, you might want to, take things a little bit more seriously the next year.
Rockets could have woke them up. Do you think there's anybody that could beat them, DeAntae, this year?
No, I don't see it.
You don't see it, yeah. Howard Beck said the same thing when we had him up here. No, he doesn't see it.
I mean, like the Celtics storyline was cool, and then they started playing basketball games. So like, that's not saying they're bad.
No, I get
just
what you're
like,
saying. Yeah,
when you have a team with this many like personalities, and everybody's used to being the man, and they really haven't played together yet. It's gonna take some time. The Warriors are already well-oiled machine. So.
I was sorry. I just want to say about the Celtics right there. Speaking of that, I think obviously because you did a roundtable with the crossover and everything. A lot of people at the Celtics win in the East. In all these publications, you saw this.
Our whole list was Warriors versus Celtics.
Was Warriors versus Celtics, yeah. Do you think people? I know it's very early. We're only 7-ish games in the season. Do you think people maybe jumped the gun or didn't factor in what you said about the Celtics, where it's going to take them some time to mesh? Because now you look at it, Milwaukee's played really good. Toronto's looked pretty good. Have people jumped the gun on the Celtics? Would you say that, or is that we need to still give that some time?
I think people maybe didn't weigh the Kawhi factor as heavily as they should have.
Word.
I'm sure all of our guys thought about the fact that it would take them some time and like weighed the fact that they had 82 games to figure it out before the playoffs start. I do think that Kawhi has just been a monster to start the season, and at that time when we were doing this, we never seen him play before. We were hearing stuff that he didn't even want to be in Toronto. We didn't know how injured he was, so there were just so many questions around him that you really couldn't lock into like picking Toronto for anything, really.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about what Charles Barkley said in terms of because I thought he actually, say what you will about him, but I thought that he actually made a good point when he said that one of the issues with Boston is that a lot of their guys need the ball to score. Where, some other teams, that's probably not the case, where you have guys that can catch and shoot more. With the exception of Al Horford, pretty much all their, star players, if you want to say that.
I don't think Gordon does.
You don't think Gordon does?
Gordon didn't even play on the ball in Utah. When he was he was the guy.
He creates his own offense a lot, though.
He can,
but
I don't think he needs
But
to.
he came off screens a lot, and there was a lot of coming off screens, catching and attacking, or catching and shooting. And, he can do that a lot. I think he's just physically not where he needs to be yet. Because his game was so based on movement, he has to sort of work his way back into shape, the basketball shape at least.
And trusting his body.
Trusting his body.
That's the hardest thing, come back from injury.
I'm not going to be too surprised if Toronto beats them.
I do think Kyrie and Tatum both need it. And
Agreed.
Terry too.
Yes, that was the other guy I was going to say.
Terry, yeah.
And we also have to factor in Terry needs, he wants to prove out. He's in a contract here. So he's looking to get paid. He knows he believes he can play as a starter. I won't say that. He believes he can be a starter. And it'll be interesting to see what the Celtics, if they do anything with him, if they trade him.
And if Kyrie Irving could play more than 60 games.
Yeah. There are question marks when you think about it with the Celtics.
Yeah. Like that I'm not even saying that to try to be funny, but that's a legitimate concern for me.
That's
it's
every year.
With Kyrie Irving, with Kyrie Irving, with some other of these star players in the league. I had
Jimmy Butler.
I had this with Jimmy Butler. I had this
year.
with Anthony
Same guys.
Davis. I had this with Anthony Davis before last year, and he was able to. He got through a whole season. So I was like, now let's see if he's able to do that.
You could do it.
And that way, even Karis LeVert coming out of college, and
Yeah.
aside from that 4-point game against the Knicks, he's been an all-star level player so far.
Yeah.
So.
Jimmy Butler, you mentioned him.
Oh,
My boy Jimmy.
oh yeah.
I love Jimmy.
What do you
Okay.
Good. You okay, first of all, let me take that because you grew up a Bulls fan.
Because he punked the Timberwolves.
And I guess some people are anti how he's gone about things. When you saw the whole report from Woj and the sit-down interview with Rachel Nichols, and he tossed her.
Oh, yeah. That was the setup right there.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Right?
She was already there. in
Well,
Minnesota.
she actually explained, I think it was on Zach Lowe's podcast,
Not The
how
Jump?
it all came.
Thought it was
No,
on The Jump. Oh.
it wasn't on The Jump. It was on his podcast. I'll listen to it. How it all came about. And it was because she was trying to get an interview with him before, and he's like, nah, wait, this wasn't the time. But, of course, when the time arose,
like,
he hit up Rachel like, yo, come through and let's do this interview. So I agree with you.
So
It was
come through from New York?
No, she was in L.A. doing because she's
That's
filming
still
The Jump.
that's a long
Okay.
flight.
So
son.
come through from LA to Minnesota?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she came through.
She had to have known at least the day before.
But
he
the
probably
day
called
of
her.
the practice, bro, she's in Minnesota?
No, she's there the day after. I believe that's what she said.
He was like, "Yo, I'm doing it today, so you're gonna want to come through."
Okay. So maybe we got the report the day after it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. At least from the way I had heard it. That's what it sounded like. Either way, he gave her the heads up. That's what I'm saying.
And he gave Minnesota the heads up, and nobody checked him. That's another thing about this too. is that nobody.
How much stake do we really put in like killing people in practice though?
What do you mean by that?
It's stake in terms of
The whole story was like, oh, Jimmy Butler just like took over practice, and
right.
how much stake do we put in somebody killing practice? There are a lot of dudes who are practice players who cannot play in a game. So like, do I really care that he killed a practice?
Well,
I was actually gonna ask you that. Like, do you care about what? Because there's been this whole thing that's been brought up, right? Like, is this just Jimmy's leadership style good? Do you like what he did at that practice? At least what was reported. Do you think that's good? Do you think it's detrimental to the team? What do you think about it?
Right. So obviously the most interesting part about that is him being like demonstrative and saying certain things to the owner and the GM and Tibbs and whoever, right? That's probably not the example you want to set on a young team with, Towns and Wiggins and guys who are still trying to learn their way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they already got their money, so they don't really have to worry about it. But had they not, they would have thought that, okay, if somebody doesn't pay me when I want to be paid or offer what I want to offer, this is how you handle it.
Word. That's a good point.
Do you believe that not them, do you believe that Jimmy, because this is a theory that's also been thrown out there, that Jimmy Butler's jealous of both of them because they got their money, and that's where this all stems from because he hasn't got his yet?
I think he's smart enough to know that he's in a different place. Like, when you're 31 and trying to get a 5-year max or a 4-year max is completely different than when you're Towns and you're 23, 24. You know what I mean? If he felt a way, it would probably be about Wiggins. And, this is a guy who Jimmy prides himself on playing hard and playing defense. And Wiggins is a guy where people criticize him for just like acting like defense doesn't exist half the games, right? And he's super athletic, but he likes to, shoot fadeaways and pull up threes.
Yep.
So if he took any issue, I think it would be with Wiggins.
I can't believe they're still on the same team.
So you're of the mindset, DeAntae, that like, hey, this is not the best way necessarily. He could have gone about this. We shouldn't. Maybe people are making too much big of a deal about what Jimmy Butler did in this particular practice.
As a Bulls fan, I grew up thinking that it was cool that Michael Jordan would like punk people in practice. Like
Steve Kerr.
Will Perdue was not Will Perdue. He was Will Vanderbilt because Jordan said that he wasn't tough enough to be named after a Big Ten school.
Yep.
We heard stories about Jordan punching Steve Kerr in practice. Like, we thought all this stuff was cool, probably to the point where like I'm mean to people when I play basketball. Like, I never like yell at people or any, like my voice is super monotone. But then when I play basketball, it goes way up here. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you still play?
I think some of that I still play in leagues out here, but yeah, it's old legs, man.
Is that?
Old legs.
I know.
Dex, what do you think about this whole Jimmy Butler thing?
Well,
Karl Anthony Towns shooting 42% for the season. I just want to put that out there.
I feel like to some degree there's been the punking of Karl Anthony Towns may have had an effect. I can't say definitively. It may. Look, you play ball, you know this. Let me ask you a question straight up. If and I'm taller than you, but if you get
Both
the
of
ball on, and you get the ball, I get the ball on you, you're guarding me in the post, and you say to me, he ain't gonna do nothing with that. Yo, I can't pass the ball back out. I can't pass the ball back out. You can't do that. Where I'm from, you got to get off the court if you do that. You got to get off the court, bruh.
It depends. If a double team comes, you should pass the ball out.
Okay, let's clarify this.
If it's just one-on-one.
If it's one-on-one, then
one-on-one.
Then you're supposed to,
Thank you.
put your best move together. Yeah.
Let me ask you both then. What do you guys think of that? Because we haven't talked about this, Dex, that much either. But like DeAntae, Dex, what do you guys think about that in terms of where the game has gone? Where, for example, Klay Thompson is shooting 24 threes in a game, and post play is almost non-existent. I was shocked when the Nets were playing the Pelicans, and I was watching, and Rondé Hollis-Jefferson actually had a post-up possession. I think it was the only one I saw the entire game. And Anthony Davis was playing that game.
I mean, I don't know how DeAntae feels about it. For me, I'm a person that's like, things evolve. It's what happens. Look, did I love basketball in the 90s when I was growing up watching it? Absolutely. I love those Knicks Bulls wars. Even y'all got us most of the time. I loved the physicality of it, and the game isn't that anymore. I like post play, but I do like, we had the ISO kind of era of the early 2000s and mid 2000s, and I like the ball movement. I think you get to see a lot of that. It's a lot of movement. I like the positionless basketball. I like that there's more guys that are skilled more than ever, different heights and sizes.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't really bother me. Maybe we're seeing not as many good defensive teams. Maybe that part of it bothers me. But in terms of the actual flowing of the game, that doesn't bother me. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I can't be mad at it because it was sort of like an organic evolution. Like, nobody went to young players and said, stop being a center. Like, all these 7-foot dudes just started getting run off the court because people were playing faster, and they just couldn't, keep them on the court with like a Warriors team. If you're playing against the death lineup and you have a slow-footed center, they're going to run you to death and score in transition every time. So, I mean, you can't be mad at it when it's just like the style of play just made a certain position obsolete. Even when there were like more big guys, I remember every year, All-Star, they would be struggling to find centers. Before they took the position off, they would just throw dudes in there. Jamal McGlory, you're an all-star. You know what I mean? For real.
You're right.
Yao Ming every year.
And you look back and you're like,
that was just, he had a whole country.
Right. But like Jamal, you're like, damn, Jamal McGlory was an all-star? You're right. He was. He really was. And it's like,
he averaged like 13 points and he was an all-star.
Right. I remember feeling some kind of way when they changed that at first. I was like, oh, damn, like I kind of like that you got voted in by centers. But now I got used to it, and I think about that point. I'm like, no, it's good. Like, I want to see the best players out there regardless of position.
The All-Star game is going to be trash anyway.
Yeah. You talk about this year or just going forward?
I mean, the actual game is just generally, like it's usually trash.
But that's what, but you know what? We're seeing more regular season games that sort of are played the same way. Like I know the games of just the amount of threes that we're seeing, just the amount of not really going inside and things like that. Like I agree, the organic evolution, it is what it is. But sometimes I'm watching basketball now and I'm like, yo, this is way too many 3-pointers. And I want to see guys like Patrick Beverley and Avery Bradley have their impact on the game and be able to defend without every single rule dictating that they have to defend somebody a certain way.
They got to make it through those screens.
It sucks. It's like...
I mean, I kind of look at it that way, too. See, my thing is not about...
It's tough, though.
It is. My thing is not...
Fighting over a screen is not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not. I asked D'Angelo Russell about that with Stephen Curry the other day, and he was talking about how, guarding him is basically impossible.
You got to fight through 3 screens. He's starting out on the baseline. He's coming around 3 screens to get the ball at the top of the key.
3 and 2 of them are moving screens.
Yeah. No, my thing, and DeAntae, I'll ask you this too, because one of the things, Steph Curry's kind of, if you want to use the word, he's revolutionized the part of the game in the 3-point shot, right?
Bill agrees.
Right? And yeah, he does. My concern going forward is, I was wondering how much he impacts a generation of basketball players where, when we were probably coming up and we're playing ball, we're playing with our teams, we're going to the court, you weren't shooting maybe as many threes, but now you got kids who are just, jacking up threes. Everybody wants to be the next Steph Curry, and I wonder what that impact has on the next generation of basketball players, because everybody can't be Steph Curry. Right. Everybody can't necessarily shoot the ball as well. We even trying to put people were trying to put Trae Young into that category. You saw that coming out of OU. Do you think there's going to be any positive or negative, the amount of threes that we're seeing or the way Steph Curry shot the ball on like the next generation of basketball players?
I mean, young players are going to mirror what they see on a daily basis. So they're definitely going to shoot more threes, but I think it just makes sense with where the game is going. I assume that the cream will still rise to the top. Like, if you're athletic and you're bigger, if you're athletic and you're taller, bigger, stronger than everybody you're playing against, you'll probably just look at them and be like, all right, I should just go past all these people.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I mean, that'll still exist. There'll just be some kid who's like, shorter, slower, not as strong, who will be outside shooting all the threes.
I'm always curious, and I know we got a break. I'm always curious about what the next evolution is, because we talked about that with newspapers before, and I don't even know if there's any coming back from that. But with basketball, you go from the ISO era, like you mentioned. Now you have all this ball movement, 3-point shooting. I mean, are we ever gonna see like a rise in defense again? Are we ever gonna see maybe the return of post play, but in a different way?
I think so. I don't know what DeAntae thinks, but I think so. I think things are always changing. People got to remember in the 70s, the scores were high. It was a very flowing game. There were a lot of high scoring games. It happens. Things have their moments. I think people get too stuck in the this is how it should be here. This is how it should be there. Things change, man. Like,
I don't remember the 70s.
I don't remember it either. I just as a fan. Of the game,
I know my history.
I know my history. My fan looking.
I wasn't outside.
Yeah. What's up, listeners and supporters of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast? We need some help from you, and it won't take up too much of your time. As we grow, we always want to hear your feedback, so take a minute or two to fill out a short anonymous survey. The survey link is right in the episode notes for this podcast. It's easy and takes less than 5 minutes. As always, we thank you for your continued support. Talking basketball, a lot of great stuff, but before we get to that, we got to, pick our number. Athlete number for this episode, and I don't know how DeAntae's going to feel about this, because 48's not a great number.
I texted you a couple days ago, and I warned you. I literally said, I'm warning you, 48 is terrible, but I know exactly where we're going to go.
All right.
So, for those of you who don't know, that's going to be the artwork or whatever.
So
you already know about that.
DeAntae could, have his vote on this, and one of the 48 players is Nazir Muhammad, Chicago connection, did play for the Bulls for 3 seasons.
Yes.
But DeAntae did not even remember his number at all whatsoever.
And he's from Chicago.
I played for the Bulls, but I didn't know what number he wore. No.
Yeah.
And he pushed LeBron.
Yeah.
So I remember.
You like that because it involves violence. You love that. So you like that.
That's a running joke on the show too. Speaking of violence, it's UFC week. I just want to throw that out there.
Do you like the UFC?
No, I'm not really into it.
You watch boxing? You watch any combat sport?
I've watched some boxing. I hated that Conor fight.
I didn't watch
Wait,
that.
Conor, you talking about Conor when he fought Mayweather?
Yeah.
I didn't watch that.
Did you actually pay for it?
No.
Okay.
I watched it, but it was just, that was terrible.
I didn't watch that. And I'm like I'm a super I cover boxing, I cover MMA also, along with basketball.
I didn't watch it.
Floyd just let him hang around.
I'm a super boxing fan, but I didn't watch that. We watched Miguel Cotto that night.
Yeah, we did. I couldn't. Sorry you had to watch that.
So, but you didn't have to pay for it. So
it was a
okay.
pop culture, like it was a thing.
Yeah,
right.
I saw it after the fact, but
Yeah, I didn't get to do that.
So we have Nazir Muhammad, as we mentioned, 18-year NBA career, who we just learned, that I just learned at least. Pablo Sandoval, who I think was nicknamed the Big Panda.
Yep.
I know that name.
Yep. Yeah, it's like my little baseball watching and all that.
Torrey Hunter.
Great. Legendary Twins outfielder.
Might have to get rid of Nazi.
Yeah. So you had Nazir at the top.
Well, I have this next person. I think you have this next person. Yeah. I'll be shocked if you don't have this next
Except
person.
I am a Torrey Hunter fan.
So am I, but
I interviewed Torrey before. He was
really?
Super cool,
really?
yeah. When he was playing Anaheim.
When he was in Anaheim. Nice.
Okay. And we have another baseball player, Jacob deGrom.
We're Mets fans, so we like Jacob deGrom. See, I saw your face. You were like, "Yo, I'm not feeling it like that."
I'm not replacing him with. I'm not replacing Torrey with him. Nah.
So you got the Torrey Hunter road. See, it's gonna be tough for me because I like Jacob deGrom now, but Torrey obviously had a
He
great
might win
career.
the Cy Young. Listen, man, you're a Met fan. You don't know how much. You don't know how much better
man,
it's gonna get.
Not that many great black baseball players nowadays. You gotta remember.
Hey, he played the black card, and I got to represent on that.
I might have to.
Wow.
I might have
First
to
time
tell.
I played the black card.
I might have to tell Matt to do both.
Nah, you can't do both. There has to be one.
I think we did 2 before.
Did we?
I think we did.
All right, your vote is for Tory Hunter.
Yeah, my vote's for Tory Hunter.
Can you have 2 votes?
No, it's 1 vote per person. I'm actually going to go with Tory Hunter, man. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got to be up there.
I'm going with.
He's the only Hall of Famer that we've mentioned here.
Jeff, who are you voting for? Oh my God!
Yeah,
Way to stay black.
gotta go with Tory Hunter.
All right, we're going with Tory Hunter.
Yeah, you didn't even think it was going to go down like that.
Kind of.
Okay.
I had a feeling you'd be a Tory Hunter fan. And I'm not going, black dude rooting for black dude there, even though that's probably what you did. But still,
Not really.
I do that.
Like
I do
Tory
that.
Hunter.
I do
I
that.
thought he was a nice guy. Nazi Muhammad's black too.
Yeah, we didn't go with him.
Yeah, but come on. Tory Hunter's way better at
No,
baseball
no.
than Nazi Muhammad
If
is
any-
at basketball.
If anything you wanted to be super biased, you could DeAntae
I
could be like,
could've
I'm
been-
going
I
with,
could've been with
he's
the whole
black, he's
team,
from
yeah.
Chicago, he played for my Bulls. He had all the reason to be
Yeah.
biased there.
He also didn't know it was 48.
I was objective. I didn't know Tory was 48 either.
You know what? I'll be objective. We'll vote for Tory Hunter because I was also a Tory Hunter fan before.
Good. We all like
So-
Tory Hunter. He deserves some respect here.
Yeah.
Back to some quick NBA before we let you get out of here, DeAntae. You look at the Western Conference, everything that's going on with Lakers. What have you thought of the Lakers? I know they get all the attention. Everybody's talking about them. You probably are annoyed about all the content you got to produce on them. What do you think about their team and what they've looked like so far this season?
I think they have a few too many ball handlers. They should have planned their offseason a little bit better because LeBron is obviously a point guard. I don't know if you need Lance and Rondo.
And Lonzo.
I mean,
And
it is
Lonzo.
entertaining though.
I mean, it is, but like having Rondo and LeBron on the court, it makes Rondo obsolete. Like he'll dribble the ball up, get to half court, and then just give the ball to LeBron and go to the
Go
corner.
to the corner.
That's true.
Which is not
He's
what you want Rondo.
No, he's
he's
useless
not.
in the
He's not
corner.
useful out there.
They gotta get shooters at some point.
I'm surprised that Beasley hasn't played at all. He was. I mean, I know the Knicks weren't like great last year, but he looked pretty good and he got decent numbers out there. He hasn't even really touched the ball and sniffed the floor at all. So like, I don't know.
I think it's the defense because defensively he's.
But they're playing terrible defense already.
Agreed.
So yeah,
So it's like, why not
they're
put him out
not.
there?
Yeah, they're not guarding anybody. So I don't know what that situation is exactly. I really like Josh Hart.
He needs to start. I've kind of been saying that.
I think he is. I think they moved
They
him
started him the last 2 games. He did start the last 2 games,
I think he is now. Just because KCP
been awful.
He's a shooter who can't shoot. Like he's supposed to be 3 and D,
Right.
but there's no 3.
There's no 3.
A shooter
Right.
can't
And the Lakers
shoot.
aren't playing defense anyway, so it's
Yep.
like, okay, what's the point? Like you need to start building on this player that is going to be. He's producing way more than what they expected, especially at this point.
Who else are shooters that can't shoot?
Shooters that can't shoot?
Yeah. I kind of like.
There's a lot of 3 and D dudes who don't really have 3.
Don't really have to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm trying to think about another 3 and D dude who's supposed to be there, but don't
they try to
really
apply
have
it
the
to
3.
everybody.
Who?
Accordingly.
Yeah. I mean, he shot the ball well
but
last
he was
year.
good. He was very good last year from 3.
I mean, Danny Green. That happened to Danny Green last year.
oh,
Yeah, that's a good one.
that's a
Although he's
pretty
shooting the
good
ball well
one.
this year.
Yeah, but last year,
Yeah.
but he did come out and say that he had an injury situation too.
Did say
So
that. So,
Who was the 3? Oh, well, the Nets with Quincy Acey last year.
yeah.
Yeah.
So do you
he's not really 3-point shooter.
That's
Shooter.
but
He was a big man in
They were
college.
trying.
That was
Now-
trying to shoot the 3.
They were
Yeah.
trying.
Well, everybody's trying.
Yeah.
Trying to stay in the league.
Speaking of,
Sure.
and that didn't happen because he's out of the
Yeah,
league.
he's on the fringe. He was on the fringe
Yeah.
before. Yeah.
Yo, but you know what's funny? Because I just remember this. So, because he was the Nets like power forward last year, basically starter, and people were getting at Jared Dudley because the Nets are starting him at power forward when they're not starting Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, who was injured for a while. He came back, whatever. So Jared Dudley responded to a fan calling him out, and he was like, "Oh, do you guys really want what you had last year?"
Ooh.
I was like, "Whoa!" Like,
Ooh.
so one of the Nets fans that I know, he said, "What did he say?" He said, "Don't threaten us with Quincy Acey."
That's a bad threat nobody wants. So do you think the Lakers, because we had some talk about, or I've heard talk about the Lakers not making the playoffs.
I could totally see them missing it.
You
Really?
totally see them, and would that be in your
If
eyes?
they make it, they're gonna be a 7 or 8.
Okay.
Okay.
Even with, but are you taking into account that with LeBron being there, there probably going to be some sort of moves at the trade deadline where they might
change. They might change their entire team, but
they might get Kyle Korver back. Well, LeBron might get Kyle Korver back.
So I don't see them moving the young guys that they have, and the guys that they picked up this summer are immovable.
Right.
Like you can't trade. Maybe you could trade JaVale, but then you don't have a center at all.
He's actually
playing well.
He's
That's
playing
what I'm saying.
well. Yeah. I'm getting fantasy points from him.
I'm saying maybe you can trade him because he's the one guy who's actually playing well. But then you have 0 centers.
Yeah.
So you completely give up on defense then because he's actually been trying on defense.
I think he works if you can get some
I've
shooters.
actually been really surprised. I've been really impressed with him.
Yeah.
He's been trying on defense. He's averaging like 16 and 7, something like that. I just checked his numbers up.
He can't play like crazy minutes just because he's getting gassed because of how fast they play, but he's been solid.
I think his production is sustainable though.
But you also can't trade Lance. You can't trade Rondo to anybody. You can't trade Beasley. So like this is probably what they have until 2019.
And Lakers Nation doesn't want to hear that.
But they'll be all right because they're getting Anthony Davis. So
he thinks that's happening.
Well, that's gonna be a trade. So
and then they'd have to give up some of those young guys. If
LeBron don't care about draft picks.
Are there any teams you like in the West that you think could reasonably, if possible, whatever that is, challenge the Warriors?
Dexter says Utah.
I mean, I guess it would be either
like
Utah or basically. I guess it would be Utah or Houston
or the Carmelo Anthony led Houston Rockets.
Yeah,
not led.
They have some they have some things to figure out, but I mean, outside of Houston, which I think still can challenge them, but they're not going to win a series. They can push them to six games probably.
Maybe.
But Utah has that defense, and they slow the game down, so the Warriors aren't really getting up the same amount of shots against them as they would in any other game. So, just like their style of play, I think gives them a chance.
What about the Lakers versus? Well, this is very early, but what about the Lakers versus Golden State in the 7-game series? Do you think that they can, if they figure it out? Do you think they can?
I think they win like one game because they have LeBron, maybe. They
so this is similar.
I mean, it's similar to Cleveland.
Okay,
like,
I agree with that.
You see what that team looks like when he leaves. Like if you take him off the Lakers, they have the same record as that team.
But I think because Brandon Ingram's been suspended the last few games, and we still have to see that sort of progress some more. I feel like that's something that we're leaving out because I think Brandon Ingram's probably going to put up a serious,
I wasn't leaving him out of my equation when I gave them one win though.
Okay.
Yeah, I was counting him.
Okay.
I'm still with DeAntae. I don't see him winning more than a game if they played the Warriors. I don't even think it would be that tough.
I mean, they could end up. I mean, that 1-8 they could end up winning.
Are y'all tired of the Warriors?
I'm
taking that as a yes.
I would say no. I was just gonna defer to DeAntae on that because I feel like people like yourself who they're writing and they're covering this consistently. I think it's more interesting for the people who are covering it. Just whether I'm covering sports or just a fan of it, I'm not really. I mean, people try to act like they don't like great teams existing, but they do. Like people do. Like, look,
they love it in college.
I'll say this:
every decade you have a team that does this.
Right.
Yeah.
Growing up and being a Knicks fan and those battles with the Bulls and bringing this back up again. And the Bulls were great. I never would have admitted that at 11, 12 years old. I was hating. I cursed the Bulls, everything bad. But it was good to have that team that you wanted to beat, to get over the top, that you wanted to beat, to push you to that. And it was something exciting about it. People will say the league isn't exciting. Yo, they're lying. I don't believe them. How many people were tuned into watching the Rockets play the Warriors Game 7 last year? Everybody was in it because you wanted to see if they could get knocked off.
Which I still think Houston would have won had Chris Paul not mess up his hamstring at the end.
Maybe.
That's debatable, obviously, but I think there's some.
Well, they would have had a better chance for sure. Yeah,
better chance for sure.
I thought.
Are you? You don't sound like you're over the Warriors because you just said you were intrigued by their start this season and how they're coming.
Right.
To people.
I think them adding Kevin Durant made them impossible to beat, but it also added like a new narrative and like a new wrinkle that made them more interesting. It's not like the same guys over and over and over. Like they have to change the way that they play to accommodate him, and he had to change the way that he played to fit into that team. So I think that made them more interesting to me. But in terms of like being tired of them winning, I mean, like this has been happening in basketball since the '60s, and
Word.
it was the Celtics, the Lakers, the Celtics. Like it's been this same cycle. You know, the Bulls had it, then the Lakers had it, and the Lakers and Celtics again in the 2000s. Like you've had specific teams go at it back and forth, trading titles for the last 60, 70 years. So I mean, this isn't really like a new thing. No.
Yeah, but you know people wanna say, oh, there's no parity in basketball, so I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah, Warriors Cavs was what all those other series were.
Right, and I find the league as interesting as ever. You know, even if people want to say, oh, the East is the East is top heavy. I think we can all agree on that. But
three teams.
Yeah,
but the team that has the best chance of knocking off Golden State is probably in the East. Out of all the other teams in the league,
I still want to wait and see how all those teams are defensively, but maybe it could be Toronto. It could be Boston.
I would take Boston and Toronto over Houston.
But
probably
there's tons of watching Giannis every night is intriguing.
I always laugh when people say Giannis.
Giannis, sorry, that's messed up. Giannis, Giannis.
That's how it's spelled.
Yeah, but I'm not supposed to say it like that.
Phonetically, right?
But what about Philly? Also,
yeah, Philly's interesting. Seeing if Washington, if everything blows up there, because it looks real messy down there in Washington.
They look done.
Already.
There's a lot of
no one's surprised by that.
See.
No one's surprised.
I don't think anybody's surprised by that.
When your big off-season signing is getting Dwight Howard, your team is done.
Or was it? Huh?
No, but I'm just saying, like when that's the move, your team is done.
He's coming back to play. I think like any game now, he's supposed to be back.
So wait, I heard about this, and I'm assuming it's true. I have not seen it yet. Is it true that the Clippers gave Austin Rivers a tribute?
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. How do you feel about that? Because I think we're out of control with video. Like, if Austin, this is no disrespect to Austin Rivers.
If his dad wasn't their coach, they wouldn't have gave him.
I agree with that.
So it's nepotism.
I mean, in terms of video tribute, yeah. I mean, when he actually played for him, it wasn't like he made him earn minutes. I thought. I don't think.
And Austin Rivers became solid. He was a solid player.
But I also
but solid players shouldn't get video tributes, man.
Yeah.
I happen to agree with that.
I think that had to do with the dad aspect, but I think when he actually played for him, he didn't. He didn't just throw him into situations just because.
Let me give you Austin Rivers'.
Austin Rivers is not a bad player. He turned himself into. He struggled his first couple of years in New Orleans, but he turned into a solid player.
Let me tell you what he averaged.
But Austin Rivers and the word video tribute should never go together.
Let me tell you, we're gonna get into the hip hop stuff after this, but let me tell you what he averaged with the Clippers, and this is what got him in tribute video, other than the fact that Doc Rivers is there.
7-3 or something.
Okay, I wish that'd be funnier. He played 243 games, 97 of them starts, only 97.
Okay.
Averaged 26 minutes a game, and in those 26 minutes a game, he averaged 11 points and 2.5 assists per game. He also shot 43% from the floor and 36% from three.
It's not horrible. It doesn't
I ain't giving him a video tribute.
Yeah, but
he's an average player.
He's an average player. It goes to his dad being who he is and his role with the team, and that's why he got it. Before we get to some hip hop, I wanted to ask you: is there any team in the East that you feel can surprise? Last year we had Indiana sort of come out of nowhere. Oladipo playing great. Is there any team you think that could really surprise DeAntae, maybe come up with the East, or is the most interesting thing to watch in the East how the Wizards are going to derail themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally looking at the standings right now and looking at every team.
Yeah.
I think maybe Miami.
I was thinking that too.
Everybody else is sort of like a known commodity. I think Miami still has some guys that we don't exactly know who they are yet. With Josh Richardson, a guy who's getting a lot better. Dragic is pretty solid. Wade doing his farewell tour, so he's gonna have a couple nights where he just goes off just because that fadeaway, that old man game, it still works sometimes.
Word.
The up and under.
Bam Adebayo,
so yeah,
who I like a lot.
Yeah, I like Bam too. Bam is bouncy. Yeah, so I think that team maybe could surprise a little bit.
Well
Everybody
coached.
Else we know who they are. You know what? I'll add Detroit to that too. Maybe Detroit will play better. If Blake is healthy the whole time and scoring 50, then maybe.
All right.
I'm not a Reggie Jackson fan though.
Neither am I.
You don't think that Kevin Knox can lead the Knicks upon his return to the playoffs?
DeAntae, don't even do it, man. Don't even.
I used to play on opening night, man.
I did the same thing to Howard back when he was here.
I'm not gonna take the bait, but yeah, I don't think that's.
I think Kevin Knox is gonna be good. I keep saying that.
I think he could be solid. Yeah.
How do you feel about your Bulls?
I think we are playing for the lottery.
Do you like that? Do you want R.J. Barrett?
I mean, actually, I don't know if I want R.J. Barrett.
Zion? Anybody?
I think I want Cam Reddish.
You like Cam Reddish?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I want Cam Reddish. I think R.J. Barrett is going to be like a Zach LaVine.
What? Really?
Yeah, just like a dude who puts up a lot of points and empty numbers.
No impact.
Really? No, I think I'm very high on R.J. Barrett. I think he could be really good.
I've only seen highlight tapes.
Oh,
I've seen him play with Duke, but like it's super early.
I have. You know what's funny? I haven't seen him that much with Duke outside of them slaughtering whoever Mountain.
Right. That's why it's
or
early.
whatever.
You got to see.
But
he's still super young. He could develop into something.
He
else.
came up here, and Jeff, you were with me when we saw this at Nationals. It was Dick's Nationals and it was Geico Nationals. He came up here with Mount Verde High School. The 2 times that I saw him here, he was the best player in that tournament, in National High School tournament. So I felt like looking at that.
I don't put a lot of stock into this till I see these guys play.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'll
saying.
know a lot more once the season actually starts.
Yeah.
All I hear about him now is just he's a scorer, not.
No, he could do more than that. He could definitely do more than that.
We'll see. Are you happy with where the Bulls are going? Because both our teams are kind of in the same place. They're rebuilding, big market teams. Both suck.
Yeah, but, I mean, once we had turmoil with Jimmy, and we decided not to add actual good players around him and like start to rebuild around an all-star for some reason, it was basically just like you might as well start rebuilding now. So
were you shocked? Because that's what you're talking about, almost 3 off seasons ago when the Knicks gave Joakim Noah all that money.
What was it, $70 million?
72 for 4 years.
He could barely play for us. So I mean, he was already sort of hurt. You know what I mean? He had. I think that was maybe like 2 or 3 years removed from that time where he was third in MVP voting. I think
that was
But it was like 2 or 3 years away from that.
Hold on.
Yeah, Phil was tripping.
I'm gonna pull up the number.
Yeah, no, we don't have to do that. Oh,
his last season with the Chicago Bulls,
probably like
Joakim.
Probably like 10 and 8.
How many games did he play?
He played 29 games.
There you go.
Yeah.
He started 2. He played 21.9 minutes per game, and the Knicks paid this $72 million over the course of 4 years.
The 4 years is the crazy part.
Not the 18 mil per.
If you,
right.
I said if he gave him a 2-year deal,
that's what. Yeah.
He's already out of the deal. Yeah.
He averaged.
He probably would have took it.
You want? Okay. What do you want first? The points or the rebounds?
I don't want to not talk about this anymore. Like,
what you said, Jeff?
They're pretty identical. I bet.
Okay. No, they're not. The rebounds 8.8, which is 21 minutes a game. That's great.
That's great production.
Points 4.3.
Okay, I was
Assists?
guessing like a 6 and 8.
Assists was 3.8. So, and the year before that was 7 and 9.
I don't even know why I asked this. I just had to ask it to
Yeah, I'm happy for my guy. Get the money.
Speaking
he
of
did a lot of good things in Chicago.
There's a headline in
That's true.
Real GM saying Joakim Noah continuing to work out in hopes of NBA deal.
Tibbs will pick him up at some point. He'll
he can get him on the minimum. All his guys already paid, so he can get them on the minimum.
Yeah.
That is true.
Real quick, since we talked about people getting paid and being happy, seems like Ty Lue getting fired. He's got to be happy. You know what I mean? He got off a sinking ship. Out of there, it was not going to go bad. Now he's gone.
I mean,
did that shock you? Did that firing shock you?
Yeah, it did.
The timing.
Just because. I mean, if you're going to do it, you might as well do it during the offseason, right?
Yep.
You knew what the expectations were coming into this year. You could say whatever you want to about, building a team around love and everything. When you take LeBron from a situation, that team is going to take a steep fall.
Right.
And everybody in that building had to know that. So to give him 6 games and then fire him is pretty dumb. You've already been through training camp. You've had him around like all the young guys who, Sexton and those guys. So it really doesn't make sense to me. But a lot of things that Dan Gilbert has his fingerprints on don't make sense.
Now, what do you think about Larry Drew kind of saying, hey, hold up, I'm not going to rock with this interim tag. I'm actually going to try to get some stability out of this situation here. He's basically not taking the interim role. I think it's an interesting play. And I understand why he's doing it because he's been in this situation.
He's been a head coach before.
Yep.
He coached the Hawks for 3 years. Coached in Milwaukee.
And then got basically fired for Jason Kidd.
Yeah. I honestly don't understand why he's so gung ho about connecting himself to this team. I saw the quotes about him saying that he's passionate about helping players develop and helping the Cavaliers rebuild.
I don't believe that.
Who are they developing in Cleveland?
Colin Sexton, I guess, and maybe
Cedi Osman.
Cedi, maybe Cedi. That's it.
I mean, okay, but and I like Colin Sexton.
I mean, it sounds good, but this is what guys like him. This is their the peak is being a head coach. So I can see why if he sees this right in front of him, he's gonna try to extract all he can out of it and actually become a head coach for as long as possible.
Before we get you out of here, a little bit of hip hop. What do you love in the past? What are you listening to right now? What are your thoughts on the state of hip hop? Everything. What do you like?
All right, I love the Joe Budden podcast.
Oh,
he's a huge Joe Budden.
I see it on his computer.
Yeah,
I saw his computer.
He has like 50 million stickers on there. You can see everything he loves. Yeah.
not everything.
I used to love. I'm not gonna say I don't love him, but Kanye from Chicago,
I'm
that was
surprised you didn't throw this question at him.
I'm just saying that was my high school.
Right.
My high school parking lot was straight up the high school dropout. Like every car playing it.
Yeah.
That came out when I was a senior in high school.
How do you feel about him now?
I mean, I can't rock with. He just seems like manic to me. So I believe all the med stuff because he's like so high and low, and even today he was tweeting wild stuff about I don't know what Blexit is really like.
Yeah,
that Candace Owens woman or whatever.
And he was saying that he wants to stay away from politics, right? That's what it was. Yeah,
yeah.
I missed all this.
But it's like it's
you're better off.
He just goes from 0 to 100 and then back down to 0 on these like important topics. So much so that I just unfollowed him on a bunch of stuff because it's just like it's a distraction.
Does it affect you listening to his music? Because we asked a couple other people camp here, like, can you separate?
A lot of people I know it drove them to go listen to the old stuff. They're like, oh man, let's go listen to like when things were good.
College dropout to graduation.
I mean, that's still.
I didn't like that last album, obviously, so I'm not gonna listen to his current music.
Okay.
I thought he wasted a few good, like really good beats.
Okay. I don't care for his.
Yeah, I did not
especially
listen
the
to
intro. He wasted a really good beat. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I can respect that. All right. So you were a fan of anybody current that you're really rocking with that you really like?
Well, I told you I didn't like the Quavo album. I
didn't listen to it.
I like Astro.
It's the same song.
Astro. I like Travis Scott, although a lot of his songs sound similar too. But,
that's true.
I like the formula, so I just listened to it anyway.
Yeah. Travis Scott, I don't hate.
Pusha's album was fire.
Yep.
Yeah, Pusha had the best album of the year to me.
So Pusha's your album of the year.
Yeah, Pusha was my album of the year. I mean,
that was Michael Grady's album of the year too.
We're gonna have a big album.
I know
of the year.
it was short, but that's as hard as an album could be. He was the only one who did that 7-song rollout properly. After that, the whole thing.
I actually have to agree with that. And Kanye's beats on that they were knocking, man.
Yeah, he gave Pusha his best.
Yeah, his beats on that were fire.
Yeah, Pusha brought it out of him though. He sabotaged. I'm trying to forget. Nas and Tiana Taylor. He sabotaged them. Kanye sabotaged both of them.
Yup.
So. I was really disappointed with that Nas.
And
album.
I love
Nas.
I was disappointed
very disappointed.
I was disappointed with that. But I had low expectations, honestly, when they announced that it was a Kanye Nas project because I felt like it
quick.
I thought it would, but I expected it to be rushed. But I was more disappointed. It's funny that you mentioned that you listened to the Joe Budden podcast when Pusha T said on that interview. I don't know if you listened to this, but
yeah, I listened to the whole thing.
Yeah, I did too, twice.
He said Nas was in the room for all of it.
He said Nas was in the room with him. Recording also.
That was disappointing.
I missed
because
that.
Remember my theory was that because the way it sounded like Nas recorded a bunch of acapellas, sent them to Kanye, and then Kanye just put whatever beats on it and just kind of moved stuff around.
It sounded like Nas helicoptered in, laid some tracks, laid some verses, and then
that's exactly what it sounded like. But then Pusha T said, I don't know, maybe he's lying, but
I don't see why he would.
But I don't see why he would. But I doubt it. But I'm just throwing it out there. But he said that Nas was there recording it with him also. So I was like,
we all were disappointed.
But you would like to think that after a 30-year career, he'd be more savvy than that.
But you know what?
Like hear things and know that this isn't right.
But that's not to say that it's not like it's possible that he laid those verses, left, and then Kanye did some more to the songs after that.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Because that also happens too, and especially with somebody like Kanye who.
Well, Pusha said that. He said like you got to be there while it's happening. Like you got to make sure.
Yeah. So I still think that theory could be right. Where Nas probably did his verses left, and
that
then Kanye
says a
did
lot
some
about
more
Kanye
after.
though. Like
It does. I agree.
Yeah.
you can't trust him to just like be a facilitator. He's gonna try to take over your whole project.
And that
Tiana Taylor had an issue with that.
well,
Yeah.
she did now with that whole rollout, except for Push, as we said, we like Daytona. It makes me wonder: do people really want to mess with Kanye like that in terms of him handling a project for you? I think there's going to be some things going forward where you're like, I don't know if I
think if
necessarily
he was
wanna do
dealing
that.
with outside people, it'd be a little different. He has so much power in that situation. You know, it's his label. He controls when your album comes out. I think if you're dealing with outside people, that goes a little bit different.
Yeah, he's not gonna be able to. Who do you think is the best rapper right now in the game? If you had to pick one person, who do you think's rapping better than anybody right now in the game?
I mean, I'm still gonna say Jay.
Oh, I like this.
Jay-Z.
I'm still gonna say Jay. Yeah.
I like because I always feel like what people do in hip hop.
People want to just. Everybody gonna just. I'm not gonna just say Kendrick every time I talk about.
I love Kendrick.
I do
yeah.
too.
I love Kendrick.
Yeah.
Like he's.
I love him. I love Cole.
Me too.
I don't think that what they're doing is better than Jay's last album, though.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Jay, I messed with the album.
So
man.
last year,
was a big sigh.
No.
I messed with the album.
No,
man.
because I think DeAntae's the first.
We all
person
like
outside of me.
444. We all like all
so
those
last
recent
year when
projects.
we started doing this podcast, we did an end of the year hip hop album, and I had it as the best hip hop album of last year.
You had 4.
Yeah, that was
I had
definitely my best
444.
from last year.
I thought it was, and I
I
felt,
had it in my top 5.
and I
somewhere,
thought,
I'm pretty
and
sure.
a lot of people weren't saying that, and a lot of people had.
They had Kendrick, right? Yeah.
Right, and here's the thing.
I'm not mad at that.
I didn't have Kendrick.
I love Kendrick. I think Kendrick's first 2 commercial albums are amazing. I don't think Dan was as good as those, and I don't think Dan was as good as 444. I just think 444 was a more complete.
Dan was great. I like 444 better.
Me too. I play the album more. I thought that was the album I wanted to hear from Jay for quite a little bit of time that I got from him, where it was just personal, introspective. I said all this before in the podcast, but
What?
I thought it was really well done.
He had to go through something. He was trying to do like growing up rap, but before he was making it material and not substance. Yeah,
Yep.
he was rapping about Tom Ford and paintings and stuff.
You
and,
can
know,
tell DeAntae likes the Magna Carta
Yeah.
Holy Grail album as much as I do.
Yeah, just talking about Blue having Basquiat's.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't the substance there.
Right.
Here
and
there
then
was.
he had to go through something, and then the substance was there. So then you got like the full grown up album.
I agree.
What the hell was my album of the year last year? I don't remember.
I don't remember what you picked.
It wasn't Freddie Gibbs. Don't do that.
It wasn't that.
No.
Do you like Freddie
I
Gibbs?
like Freddie Gibbs, yeah. Freddie from Gary, man.
Oh, yeah.
Freddie from Gary, man. That's the
I know he's
Gary's basically Chicago.
That's
like,
why I
it's
have.
right there. That's
I have.
the
He's
hometown.
on my laptop also.
Against the Gibbs. I
Yeah.
messed against the Gibbs, bro.
He's a huge Freddie Gibbs fan.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
The day.
I don't think Freddie. I don't want to. I've said this before. I feel like I always have to defend myself. I'm not saying I dislike Freddie Gibbs or I don't think he's good. I don't think that. The love that this man has for
Okay,
Freddie
it's
Gibbs.
just like outsized.
Yo,
yeah.
it's crazy.
Nah, it's not. It's
He can rap. Like I'm not.
He currently. That's not to say that I think he's better than some of the guys we've mentioned. Although I think he's on that level of like the best now or whatever. I'm not relaxed. Hold on. To me, he's my favorite artist now currently.
What I like to.
But
Yeah.
that's
favorite is subjective. Yeah.
But yeah. But I also think that he, like, if I'm making a top whatever artist, he's got to be in there somewhere. I'm not saying he's 1 or 2 or whatever.
Yeah, that's
you know
fine.
what I'm saying?
yeah, that's your list, so that's fine.
Yeah.
What I did like you say, well, I'll tell you before you go, is I think a lot of times in hip hop, we're always like the person who's rapping the best is this person that's at a certain age range, right? Like you kind of have to be in your hip hop prime, which I
Yeah.
still don't know what that is. Even though Jay might still be rapping as great as anybody, people just kind of forget about it. It's like, oh, you're 45? Like, nah, there's no way I could put you into the best rapper list.
Right.
Why do you think that ageism exists in hip hop? Like, I'm kind of tired of it.
Well,
sometimes.
it's a young genre. Like my parents are older than hip hop.
But does it have to be that? Are we not evolving past that at the point now where it's like?
I
think
think
we're-
we are.
I think we are
because
now.
We have like the Jays and the Nas's and those guys still around, but like those are the first people to
do
really
it.
have like
Right.
Yeah.
actual 20-year careers
Yeah.
in rap.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people always compare, rap and rock or whatever, but like you can't have legacy artists until you've had enough time to build a legacy. So
Word.
I think that's where hip hop is now, like starting to build that.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that. And I was especially with Jay putting out an album like 444, where you can still see his pen game is still sharp, and his beat selection is still great, and we got to see on the album. So
yeah, now we gotta just get Nas to stay away from Kanye, and then we'll get him back where he's.
I agree with that.
Agree.
By the way, my and real quick because I know we're wrapping
we
here.
got DeAntae out of here.
That album, I don't think it's the Nas album done album. That was also my theory about that too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too. Cal was screaming that 2 years ago.
Yeah, remember that on that, and I was all hyped, and then I read this New York Times article.
Hard too.
The New York Times article that I think came out last year. Last summer, he said, "Oh, the album should be done in 2 weeks." And I remember we were seeing stories about how he was working with No ID and he's working with whatever. And I even saw another story shortly after this album came out that, he's still finishing his real album. So I think that the solo project that we're supposed to get is probably going to be maybe something like, we might get another Life is Good, to be honest with you, after that whole
Life is Good.
Life is Good was hard.
Life is Good.
Where do you rank that in Nas albums?
Probably like a 5, like around 5th. I mean, Illmatic is obviously the number one.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Then I would probably go. I would go I Am after that. Oh no, hold on, no, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to say that.
I Am is underrated though. I think so.
No, well, I meant to say It Was Written. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say I Am.
It Was Written.
I think It Was Written is a little overrated, but
I still listen to It Was Written.
In terms,
I still listen to songs.
I say that in terms of the people who actually say that it's better than Illmatic, I don't think
I Am was Hate Me Now, right?
Yes.
I Am is Hate Me Now. Nas is like Dr. Knockboot.
You won't see me tonight. Yeah, Dr. Knockboot's a pretty awful song.
I think I would still put that third just because of I remember listening to it. Like I was like the age where I could finally start buying my own albums and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think I would still put that.
Do you have it over the Lost Tapes? Do you count that as an album?
Not really.
Okay. Because I know some people do, some people don't. The Lost Tapes is a really dope project, but some people don't really count as an album.
I don't really think of that as like a Nas album. Really.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, you know what? Actually, no. Hip Hop Is Dead has got to go before I Am. I forgot.
Oh, you're really high on Hip Hop Is Dead?
I'm not signing that.
Hip Hop Is Dead has got to go.
Do I like it better than I Am? I feel like they're even. So
I like I Am more.
I can't like.
I like I Am
I would go Hip Hop Is Dead before that.
Where do you put
Life Is Good? Might be before both of those. Actually,
I think. I think you're right.
Life Is Good should be third. Actually, I'm doing this in real time.
That's fine, but I happen to actually agree with you. I have Life Is Good as like my third.
Life Is Good.
I had Life Is Good. Like, did I have a second? Or I had a second or tie for second, somewhere like that.
I do think it's third.
I had it like second. Just
but you were doing this in real time, so we.
Yeah. That song "Stage" just popped into my head, and I was like, "Yo, that's third."
I have Life Is Good second. I remember I have it just above Stillmatic, Godson. What do you think about Godson?
Oh, I forgot about Godson. To me, that's definitely better than I Am.
It only has one bad song. It's just that song is. It's just that song.
What song is it?
Zone Out.
Zone Out with the Bravehearts.
Yo, he hates
you don't even
that
remember
song.
Zone Out. That hook is so bad.
That.
See, you don't remember because that hook is so bad.
The rest of the album is great.
I actually think that's up there for
that's a complete album minus that one song.
You seem to be like me in the fact that you are both a Jay and Nas fan, which some people seem to be surprised.
Yeah,
that
I'm more Jay than Nas. Though.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm more Nas than Jay, but I'm.
I
remember both. Getting Volume 2 like for my birthday and stuff. Like I'm definitely more Jay.
Yeah, I was definitely born late.
I remember going to. I was just talking about this with a friend the other day. I remember we went to go to Beach Street in Brooklyn to get Volume 2. I remember that day. That was a good day. That was good.
Yeah.
Beach Street, that's dope. I wish I could have done that.
When I was
man, Beach. That was a vibe. That was a place to get. That was a place to get all the stuff from Brooklyn back in the day.
The album when I was growing up was Damn Carter 3. Or Carter 4.
He just dated himself.
3 or 4.
I don't know how young he is.
Carter 2 is better than that, though.
Carter 1 is better than both.
Carter 2 is the best Wayne album.
I think so.
I think the Carter 3 is mad overrated.
I'll take Carter 1. I do think the Carter 3 is overrated.
Mad overrated.
Carter 2 is the best Wayne album.
All right. What's your favorite hip hop album of all time? I feel like I'm throwing all these random hip hop questions. Favorite hip hop album of all time? You gotta take one. Blueprint.
Okay.
It's a good one.
Yours is Illmatic. I think both of ours is Illmatic.
Mine's Blueprint.
Yeah, I think Illmatic is my favorite.
But those are like the trivia questions.
But Blueprint's like
Illmatic is hard, but the Blueprint.
But Blueprint's like in my top 5. If you told me I gotta take
Jay's my guy.
Yeah, Blueprint over Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put Reasonable Doubt right after.
You know what's funny?
Where do you put the Black Album anywhere there?
Number 3.
3.
I really like the Black Album.
But when I was younger, I was always
Black Album was a little bit more poppy to me. It was like anthems kind of.
I love the production on it so much. So that was.
It is, and you thought Jay was going to retire, so it was really good. I think when I was younger, I was more Reasonable Doubt over Blueprint. But as I've gotten older and I've really sat back with Blueprint, I feel like that production is just fantastically produced album is going to really stand the test of time. And
yeah, I messed with
that was Jay.
That was Kanye
That was
before.
Jay just at his master. And, you know, I always remember because I dropped on 9/11 and that was my first couple weeks in college. And Fab, Ghetto Fabulous dropped that day too.
I messed with Fab too. Fab's one of my favorites too.
Okay. That was good.
Yeah.
All right, man. So you listen to some good stuff. Yo, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
So,
We've been here for a while.
Yeah, I know. It's been for a while. We were trying to link up. We'll definitely have you back again. You can find DeAntae, see all the work that he edits on Sports Illustrated's The Crossover. He does a lot of great work. He thinks the Warriors are going to win. He thinks the Bulls are in rebuilding mode. They're coming back, right?
No hot takes.
No hot takes.
Neither of those are hot takes.
It's not, man. And see, it shows Bulls and Knicks fans. We can get along. People think we can't sometimes because all the wars and
things. We're both bad now, so it's easy.
It's easy to get along. We get good again. We probably won't like each other, but it's all good. DeAntae, man, thanks again for coming through. That's it for episode 48 of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.